was going to retire. And he said, hey, I'm thinking about selling the business. So I was about 30 years old. So needless to say, I didn't have two pennies to rub together. But I reached out to contacts I had from a distributor that I had known from different trainings at different vendors and things. That's Dan Brooks and Leif Anderson. And I said, hey, would you guys like to go in on this with me? And so in 2011, we bought the company I used to work for, GE Technologies.
Most people think manufacturing's dirty, boring, or dying. They're dead wrong. This is Manufacturing Runs the World. We're here to fix the misconceptions, teaching the next generation how modern manufacturing really works, and why it matters more than ever.
Before we get into it, why don't you just kind of tell me a little bit about your background and how you ended up at Rhino Tool House?
I actually am an engineer by degree. So I got my master's degree in industrial engineering at the University of Louisville. So while I was in school, we had co-op internship program with different manufacturing companies. So I worked for GE Aviation, and then I worked for GE, what was consumer and industrial. So it was appliances and lighting. And when I got out of school, I liked manufacturing a lot. And so I went into like a manufacturing training program. I moved around kind of the central US, so Ohio, Kentucky, into different lighting plants, and then settled in at GE Appliance Park here in Louisville. And I took a job in supplier quality, and I missed, I spent more time on the floor, because that's what I enjoyed than I spent kind of with my suppliers. I didn't enjoy the paperwork side of it as much.
Yeah.
And so my brother-in-law actually at the time worked for an assembly tool distributor called GE Technologies. And he said, hey, we have an opening. I think you'd be really good at this. You're an engineer and you can speak to people. Here's what we do. So that was it. In 2006, I left GE Appliances and I came over to GE Technologies, and I had the western part of the state of Kentucky. And I would call on customers and I would look for different assembly tool solutions. So we focused mainly on the specialized assembly tools that people use to put products together. So bolts, screws, you want to control the torque, you want to have complete control over the fastening process, you want to make sure the operator does it exactly as prescribed. Those are the types of equipment. And then we serviced that equipment. It was a pretty niche business. We were a small company. We did maybe $3.5 million in business. And I enjoyed that quite a bit. And then the Great Recession happened. And that slowed it down dramatically. My customers didn't have a lot of money to spend. It was a pretty rough about year, 18 months in the business for all of us, myself included. I was about 28, 29 years old at the time. So I had two young kids and a wife. And I left GE Technologies and went to Hilti and was calling on energy customers, which was it was great to see a big company like Hilti. It was great to see how they did, sort of sales training and product training. The way they treated their customers, I thought was really inspiring. But in 2011, the original owner of GE Technologies, he was about 65 years old. He was going to retire. And he said, hey, I'm thinking about selling the business. So I was about 30 years old. So needless to say, I didn't have two pennies to rub together. But I reached out to contacts I had from a distributor that I had known from different trainings at different vendors and things. That's Dan Brooks and Leif Anderson. And I said, hey, would you guys like to go in on this with me? And so in 2011, we bought the company I used to work for, GE Technologies. It was about a $3.1 million company, kind of surreal experience because we had no idea what we were doing and buying companies at the time. Yeah, muscled our way through and, solved problems as they came. And, we ran it in the beginning completely separate, but their company, which was Rhino Assembly, did exactly the same thing, right? And so as a young person, I really liked the idea of having two mentors that could help me, when I had questions or problems. How did you solve this? What did you do in the past in situations like this? So that was a great experience. And every year that went by, we figured out we kind of did this wrong. We should have just merged it into Rhino Assembly. We do the exact same thing. We sell the exact same products. We service a similar customers just in a different geography. Right. And so a few years into that, GE Technologies officially became part of Rhino Assembly.
Okay. Nice. And then you still have the same partners and everything?
Yeah. And so Rhino Assembly, Dan Brooks and Leif Anderson were the two founders of Rhino Assembly. There were really two halves of what is now Rhino Tool House, right? So Rhino Assembly was one half. It was founded in North Carolina in 2000, again, focused around the assembly tool, the specialized assembly tool market. And then we moved into material handling and we serviced all of those things. So we serviced the assembly tools we sold. We did some service around the material handling. And then the other half was a company called the Tool House. So the Tool House was founded in 1983 in Wisconsin. And that was Chip Polson and Dave Worth were the two partners when I got to know them. And so in 2018, we decided, hey, we do the same thing. We have very little overlapping geography. And it allows us, if we merge together, it allowed us to solve a common request from our customers, which was, hey, Kyle, you do a great job for me in Kentucky. I have a factory in Wisconsin. Or, hey, to the Tool House, you do a great job for me in Illinois. We have a factory in Alabama. Yeah. Right. We'd love for you to help us there. And in our business, everything was geographically based in terms of what we were allowed to sell and where. And it was a great fit. I mean, we really had a lot of the same core values and the same business principles. And so when we came together, we literally, like, everybody stayed on. We had like one state where we overlapped with like one person. And essentially we just said, hey, you're going to go work with that region, because we essentially divide up the country into different regions. And we had one gentleman who had to move over to the other region, but otherwise everything was, we didn't even have to change anything. That's how perfect it was.
Yeah, it's interesting. I very recently started asking the question, if you had $50,000, how would you start a manufacturing shop, knowing what you know now? And you're like the case study for it. So you just like went and did it with less than $50,000, it sounds like. So
Yeah, I read that question. I appreciate you letting me know some of the potential questions at a time. And I thought a lot about that. And I said, how would I do this? Even today, I was kind of thinking, like, if I were to do this again, what would I do? What would I do actually today versus 15 years ago? And I think that a lot of the same principles hold true that made us successful then and make us successful today, which is a lot of people sell things, and it's not necessarily easy to sell things, but it's harder to actually help people make those things work and go and have them use them. And that's really where we try to separate ourselves. If I was going to open a new business, I would focus on that, right? Because especially with the internet and everything today, I mean, you can find people who sell the same thing or very similar things. But what people want is somebody to come help them do it, somebody to pick up the phone when they have a question. Those are the things that I would focus on that are different.
for like the service and maintenance side of it, we both sell it and then help them install it, help them maintain it, check in on them. Yeah, because I imagine those manufacturers, when they're running their parts, they're kind of like out of sight, out of mind for a while. And then you gotta check in and say, okay, you've done over 1 million pieces of product with that one part, so it's gonna break down soon.
Well, and that's where I think was so interesting to me. I mean, even as an engineer from school, right? And then working for GE, I was amazed at how little I knew about assembly tools. And here was this company I went to work for. This is basically at the time, was their entire business. And there was so much more to it than I ever understood that how do you make sure that every bolt is good? That it's tightened to the right torque, that I know that they put the right number in there, that it's not going to create a quality issue down the road for the plant or for the customer. And I think that in scale is really what manufacturers are facing today is there's so much technology that they need people like us and other people in other areas that we're not in to be experts for them, because they really have to just be experts at making their product. How does it work? How does it go together? What should they be looking for as part of that process, right? Like, I can't help them necessarily with that, but I can help them with, I hear what you're saying. I understand what you're looking for here. Here's the right equipment to use to do that so that you'll have the best results.
You're kind of even filling a skills gap there for them, right? Because they don't have to hire an engineer on their side or a tech that's gonna maintain that system or maintain that part. They can just contract to you as needed.
Yeah, we hope so. I mean, and we really have a lot of customer partners who see us as that. I mean, that's really the relationship we try to grow and build with our customers, is that we want to be an extension of them. When we really think about our success, we can't be successful in the medium term or long term if our customers aren't successful in the medium term and long term. And to your point, that's a request we get a lot now is we've always done service on those devices. So like if you bought a tool from me and the tool needed maintenance or had broken down, you would contact me. I would come pick it up. We would take it to one of our repair centers and get it fixed for you. We still do all that. But now what our customers are asking is, hey, we love that. That's great. But we also just have questions on a daily basis about how a tool is performing or how we can make it perform better. Or we would like somebody on our side to pull the tool down and put the new one up so that we can send it out to maintenance, who won't make a mistake putting it back, right? Because their maintenance guys and their electricians have to know 100 different devices. So we're being contracted, like to your point, to put a full-time employee essentially who's a Rhino Tool House employee, but essentially works hand in hand with our vendor or our customer partners.
Yeah. Now, we chatted a little bit about being passionate about one single thing. I kind of get a sense that you really love that problem solving on the engineering side and helping people realize that. Is there one particular subject, like, or one particular thing within the business that you solely focus on that you love?
I think helping customers, I think my favorite part of my job, and I don't get to do it as much as I used to, but I really enjoy when I get to do it still, is it's going into a factory and watching them build their products. I mean, I could sit there, it's like, people sit there and stare at the ocean. Yeah, I find myself sort of like gazing off into space, like watching washing machines coming down a manufacturing line or cars coming down a line, or I mean, it could be anything. I mean, even watching the speed with which people build like faucets for a sink. I mean, it's amazing to me. I could just stare off into into it and watch it for hours. But I think for me, I think where we fit into that gets me really excited is we sell products, and I talked a little bit about it, right? But the way to really get the best use or the best value out of what we sell is two things. One, to help them use that by itself. But in today's world, everything connects with everything else. And so what our customers run into is they say, "Hey, Kyle, I bought this tool from you or this hoist or this collaborative robot," but they're not using it by itself. They'll say, "Hey, I'm using this collaborative robot to fasten this bolt or take this picture or move this part." And they don't want to just buy the collaborative robot. They want to buy a collaborative robot that does whatever they had in mind for it to do. So maybe it's a quality inspection, right, with a camera system. So what we offer is we take primarily off the shelf things, although we do make custom sort of integrations or things, but primarily off the shelf items. So like a collaborative robot and a camera system, an inspection system. We would put those things together and make them work together so that the customer has a turnkey solution, right? So that it works the way they had in mind and they're not having to do that part of it.
All right, Kyle, I want to be mindful of your time here. Yeah. Thanks again for being on the podcast. Yeah. You did great.
Thanks, Justin. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Kyle. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. See ya. Bye.